Hello. Yes. Hello everyone. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ananda. Yeah. Just give me 5 more minutes. We'll start.
Sir, this is Ram here, sir. I have a small doubt. Are we going to cover Kafka and Kafka concepts also along with microservices and Spring Boot, right?
You want to see examples using Kafka?
Maybe a bit high level overview about Kafka and use cases that we are going to use while developing the microservices.
Oh, yeah.
Are we going to cover,
So,
right, sir?
yeah. I'll prepare few. Actually, I don't have plan to cover Kafka, but yeah, if you have any such requirements, let me know. I have examples how to configure Kafka and how to keep something if you want to store through Kafka and process it. We can do that. I can give you
Yes,
a
sir.
few
I mean,
examples.
maybe half of the session just for overview, like what is Kafka, why it is required, and what was the reason for not using existing MQs, and why we are going for Kafka, and maybe later, as you said, some of the examples.
Oh, yeah.
Sir, I have seen 35 days is that course tenure, sir. Will that be sufficient? Because the concepts are wider and takes longer time, right? That's what I just got a little doubt.
Yeah. We will spend some more extra time also during
Okay.
weekends. Yeah, of course, it should be enough if we really spend 1.5 or 2 hours.
Okay.
As we are discussing topic by topic, right? We are not going or deviating from the topic. So we are mostly focusing on the topic by topic. So yeah, we would able to complete. But I am not really hurry to just finish the session. Uh, we will cover slowly and everybody should understand. If really if it requires 5 more sessions or 10 more sessions, we will spend some extra time during weekends also.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. We'll see how much speed we can go because the same content I used to cover in 18 hours workshop sessions.
Okay.
So yeah, but those are continuous session, right? So
Correct.
there won't be any miss from one topic to another topic as it is a continuous session.
Yeah, sir. Sir, one more doubt, sir. Are we going to include any small project or as part of this course, or is it not, sir?
Yeah. So basically, once we start with MVC,
Hmm.
the complete in MVC we do basic design of presentation, right?
Hmm.
Forms and how to submit that, various kind of forms to our
Mhm.
controller classes and how to handle basic
Mhm.
URLs, hyperlinks, everything we need to understand from the MVC point of view. So there we
Hmm.
integrate with Hibernate and we'll do some database examples and we'll integrate AOP, okay? And we can add some kind of security once done with that on the same project itself.
Okay. No, sir. My purpose of asking this question is in case if we are not planning the project-oriented way of development, maybe you can take one specific use case and starting with your starting example itself, you can start giving the foundation so that along with the parallel class itself, it will be completed.
Correct. That is what I'm saying. Once we start with MVC, that we can do.
Okay.
Getting right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, by the end of this course, if you are able to understand the concept and if you are able to complete a small project also with microservices, maybe 3 or 4 microservices, that will be, I mean, that will really give some exposure for us, practical exposure.
Hmm. Sure. I mean, when we say project or when we say the example, so maybe you are expecting a kind of a concrete use case from the
Exactly, sir.
project
Exactly.
side, right? Yeah.
I know you will be taking different use cases and different examples, but what I
Yeah.
can request you is maybe all that examples can together be a big use case. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see how the pace goes. Okay. So based on that, we will plan, if required, we'll plan sessions for that project also. Once we're
Okay,
done
sir.
with all the topics, right,
Hmm.
we can able to put all the topics um, understanding on a other use case or a project, and we'll try to implement it from the scratch so that
Okay.
you can understand how to choose um, you know the technology based on your use case and how to go with databases and all, which databases we can choose, either SQL or no SQL, and how to uh, think when it changes from databases SQL to no SQL, or when you want to call one service to another service, how to deal with it. Is it asynchronous or asynchronous? In which way we can better handle it? How we can, handle all the exceptions, right? Failure handlings or cachings, load balancings, like.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Sure. So let us start. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yesterday we were in discussing dependency injection. We started with dependency injection, right? Yeah. So when you want to implement a complete end-to-end MVC use case using Spring modules, we can implement them. Spring MVC, Spring Transactions, Spring Jdbc, and ORM data, AOP, security. There are many other modules. We can use them to implement back inside implementation. But take anything right here, we can implement controller or business or DAOs. We can implement them like a simple POSO classes. You can use simple POSO class for your controller. For business also simple POSO should be enough. For DOs also should be POSO should be enough. So whatever you implement, right, from the controllers or business or DAO, we used to run all these classes on IOC container only. Earlier, right, when it is implemented using struts or EJBs, you need special infrastructure support or you need special server support there. You need to install a Tomcat kind of thing or a WebLogic kind of thing to run your server side part. But when it comes to Spring, it doesn't really require any special server, as IOC is able to handle all your classes. We can use simple Java class itself to run application. We never imagined this before Spring. We always used to thought we need to have a server, and in server only we need to deploy, right? We need a web server or application server. But when Spring came up with a thought. Okay, without having this server's dependency, we should able to run applications. Spring came with that thought, and they implemented this IOC as a simple Java class. So using this Java class, you can able to handle all your MVC classes life cycles. You can create their objects, you can manage, you can assemble them, you can do life cycles, event handling, whatnot, whatever features you have in a basic web server or application server, all that features came here as a open source. You can use them by getting jar file into your application. You can utilize that feature in your application. That's how Spring designed. Okay. So anyway, as we thought, all our classes are going to run and manage on top of your IOC only. Okay. So basically, you know what IOC will do. It can create objects, it can manage life cycles, it can do the dependency injections, and all it will handle here. Okay. So the basic example how to handle we discussed, right? You need to create your POSO classes. Either it can be a controller or business or any utilities or DAOs. Then you need to configure your POSO into XML, and you need to load that XML into your container. So here a product is a simple POSO class. We are loading that POSO class into, we are configuring that POSO class into our XML file. Finally, we are loading that XML into container. That's all. If you implement struts based application or servlet based application, similar way we do, right? In case of servlets, we implement here a product servlet and we configure that product servlet into web.xml file, and finally we just make it a var file and deploy into Tomcat. But here really not required. Even it is a web application also, you can run on your IOC container. It doesn't require any special, you don't need to make it a var and you don't need to deploy. You just simply configure your XML into your IOC container class and start it. So it will start internally Tomcat. That we will see in boot. Okay. Now here it will not start. We are not integrated with any Tomcat. It's a just standalone. It's a standalone container that you can run and you can see results if you want on your console. In case if you want to make your custom web application, there also you can utilize it, but that is really not required. Okay, so this is how in Spring you will create a POSO class and you configure your POSO classes into XML file and you load your XML into IOC container. Okay, so this is how it looks like. We will create POSO classes. We configure POSO classes into metadata files or XML file. Finally, we load this XML into container. Then container, based on configuration, it will read your POSO classes and it will do all the instantiation, whatever it has to perform. Finally, it will make your application ready. Okay, so there are two IOC containers are available. One is Bean Factory and one is application context. Bean Factory is a old one, which is the basic core container, and the application context is J2EE container, which is having all the features, all features implemented on application context container, and the Bean Factory is basic core container. Okay, so we are not going to use anywhere this Bean Factory or application context also, but internally your web application context, in case of web applications or in case of Spring Boot applications, internally it is going to use web application context only. We can call this web application context as J2EE container also. Okay, and what they do, the main feature of your containers is, right, dependency injection. We already understand, right, why dependency injection is required. Let me draw through a paint. Basically, when you implement a class, either a DAO class or any business class, right? So let's take business layer and the DAO layer. When you want to call from business to DAO layer, if you want to make a call from business class to DAO class, if you want to make a call here, this business class is having DAO class dependency. Let's say DAO class, if it has some methods, here, and if you want to call from business class, then you can say business class is having dependency of DAO. Let's say if business class methods, if you have dependency in controller, if it wants to make a call to business class methods, if this business class methods dependency, any method, right, in business class, this controller class, if it have any dependency methods, if it want to call any method, then we can say controller is having dependency of business. Okay, so when such dependency we have, so Spring is recommending what? Spring is recommending what? Instead of creating or instead of hard coding that business class objects here, do not hard code, do not hard code, do not hard code any, do not hard code any other class dependencies. Do not hard code any other class dependencies. If you have any dependencies, okay, just create that class instances here. Just create that class instance references here, and the injection will be taken care by Spring. You don't need to create object directly. Okay, Spring will perform dependency injection. So when a class is having other class methods dependency, of course that class object you required in this class. So instead of having the object creation directly, you can ask Spring to inject these references. Okay, we understand this yesterday session also, how to inject this. So here my controller class is having dependency of business and my business class is having dependency of DAO. Okay, so we know how to perform that dependency injection. So on very high level, if you want to say what is dependency injection means passing required parameters into any of your POSO class. So we know that every class is a POSO class, either it's a business or controller. It can be a controller or a business or a DAO. We can say it as POSO class. It's a POSO class. Any dependency if you have here, if you have any dependency here, either it can be a simple primitive dependency or it can be any secondary type or any class as a dependency. Okay, any class dependency, primitive dependency class, or you can say object dependency or any collections dependency, right? Anything. In Java, how many data types we have? Either primitives or we have custom objects or collections or arrays. Okay, you can have any dependency. You can pass the dependency values from XML file. Okay, your class may have some primitives as a dependency, or you may have some other class object as a dependency, or some collections may be required in your POSO class. So whatever it is, you can configure that in your XML file. Whatever it is, you can configure that and you can pass that from your XML file. From here, you can declare, or from here, you can pass values to your primitives. Values to primitive variables or your secondary types or objects. You can pass them from here, primitive variables or objects or your collections. You can inject from your XML file. You can configure them here. You can configure everything here, and you can the values of primitives or objects or your collections you can configure here, and your IOC container will read. Your IOC container will read. Your IOC will read these properties. It will read these properties and it could able to inject them into, or it can able to pass them into your POSO class. So it will read, IOC will read and it will inject, or it will pass to your POSO class. This is what we call dependency injection. Okay, what is dependency injection means? Giving required properties to POSO class, we say dependency injection. Giving the required properties from configuration file or from metadata file to your POSO class, we should call it as dependency injection. Okay, so while doing dependency injection of primitives, we know how to do dependency injection of primitives using simple setter method or by using constructors. You can do this. Not only primitives, for objects or for collections also, you can use setter dependency injection or collection dependency injection. There are two flavors. One is setter dependency injection and one is constructor dependency injection. Using setter or constructor, you can inject your required properties into your POSO class. So we see how to deal with setter dependency injection. So here is our yesterday's example. So we have three classes. One is car class. Car class is having engine class dependency, and engine class is having fuel class dependency. So this is how we implemented fuel class. So fuel class is having dependency of fuel name. It's a primitive type. Okay, I mean we need to pass this name from XML file. And coming to other classes, I have an engine class. Engine class is having fuel class dependency. Engine is having fuel class dependency. And here car class, I have car class is having engine class dependency. So here engine class and car class both are having secondary type dependencies, right? And fuel class is having some kind of primitive type dependency. Now to inject these values, I'm using a setter method here. I'm using a setter method here, set fuel name. And in engine also, to inject the fuel object, I'm using set fuel, a setter method. And in car class also, I'm using set engine, a setter method to inject engine value. And how we injected it? So first fuel class. In fuel class, we have fuel name. It's a string value. So how to pass it? By using property tag, you need to mention your setter method name here, and the value should be whatever you want, petrol or CNG or diesel, whatever you want to inject, you can inject here. And coming to engine class also having dependency of fuel, but the fuel is not a primitive type. You need to inject it as a secondary type. So to inject a secondary type, you need to use a reference here, and which reference we need to pass? Fuel class reference. So this is the player class reference ID. That ID we are passing here. The similar way, car class is having engine dependency, and we are giving engine reference here using reference attribute. We are passing this engine reference so that now car can able to call engine class methods and engine can able to call fuel class methods. Okay, why we did this injection? Because I want dependency of this class methods. So if you see, car class is calling engine class method start engine. Okay, so the start engine is dependency method to my car class. That's why I did dependency injection of engine here. Otherwise engine is not required. Until unless you need to call engine class methods, it really not required to inject this engine class here. Why I injected this engine class here? Because I have engine class methods dependency. That's why I injected here. Similar way, engine class is having the dependency of fuel class method. That's why I injected fuel object here. Okay, so this is how we can perform setter dependency injection using this property tag, and in case of setter dependency injection in case of setter dependency injection, right, it is not mandatory to inject it. It is not mandatory. I mean, without injection also your application will be started. Without dependency injection also your application will be started. But whenever you try to call methods, right, without dependency injection also, understand here, without dependency injection also your application objects will be created. Your car class object will be created, engine object will be created, and fuel object will be created. But dependency injection will not happen. If I don't use property tag, dependency injection will not happen. And whenever you try to call this, right, if injection is not happen means object is not given to car class. So what will happen here? Whenever you try to call engine class start engine, so the default instance variables values will be assigned to null, right? So it will call null dot start engine. So then you will get null pointer exceptions. At runtime you will get null pointer exceptions. So it is not really mandatory to inject. It will not force you to inject it. But in case of constructor dependency injection, it will make sure that you will do the dependency injection compulsory. Okay, so in setter dependency injection, it is not mandatory to call property tags. It will not force you while starting application. It will not force you while starting your application, so that you will not realize dependency injection has performed or not also. So you may get null pointer exceptions. Okay, you may get null pointer exceptions. If you comment this also, it will start first. Just comment one. Okay, in Indian class I commented it, and I'll just see whether this object has been created or not. Put SOPs, see whether your container is creating objects. As I have dependencies, is it really making sure that injections are happening before instantiation of before starting my application? Is it really making sure the injections happened or not? In case of setter, it will not do. Doesn't matter to start your IOC container. See, I'm not calling any car method start car. Try to start your application. It is created all the objects, fuel object, engine object, car object. But when you really start executing your methods, then it will try to call the dependency methods. As I didn't injected anything, right? You will get null pointer exception. I'm getting a null pointer exception in this class here in this statement because it is not injected. Okay, so it will not really force you to do injection here. So the same thing try to do with constructor dependency injection, right? So in case of setter, we use setter method. See here, I have a city name, employee address. In employee address class, I have city name, and I'm injecting that city name using this setter method. Okay, so we done with this, right? We know how to call setter method and we can pass the values. So in case of constructor dependency injection, your constructor need to be parameterized. So what should be parameters of your constructors? The parameters of your constructor should be your class dependencies. Let's say if your class is having one parameter is dependency for your class, then you need to create one parameterized constructor. Dependencies, then your constructor should be 10 parameters constructor. So we know, right, parameterized constructors we can create. So let's see the same example, right, with constructor dependency injection. And this is how we do, right? In case of setter dependency injection, we use property tag. Here you can see property tag, and we use value for simple values and reference for objects. And finally, we load it into container. In case of constructor, we use constructor org. We use constructor org, and we will pass either value or references. Okay. So the same thing, in place of property tag, we are using constructor argument tag. Let's create a project. Constructor di. Copy same classes here. Go to build path, configure build path, and add your Spring jar files here. Okay, so go to each class and see how injection doing here. So fuel is like a DO class. So my fuel class is having dependency of fuel name, and I'm injecting this fuel name using setter method. So now I want to do this from constructor. So delete the setter method and put a constructor here. So remove default constructors. If you have default constructors, Spring will create object using default constructors. So don't put any default constructor. Create a parameterized constructor. This dot field name equal to field name. Okay. So now this field name I'm injecting, I need to inject it through constructor. So this field is a constructor with one parameter field name. Okay. And same way engine. Engine is having the dependency of fuel. Instead using this setter method, make it parameterized constructor. For car class also, inject engine object as a through the parameterized constructor. Now, how to do this dependency injection here? Earlier, when I have setter methods, comfortably I used property tag. Okay, Now you should not go with property tag. Instead of using property tag for constructor arguments, right? You need to put constructor argument tag. And here, if it is a primitive, you need to call a value and you should pass this. Okay. See, in case of setter method, we are giving setter method name because we will have multiple setter methods. So we need to pass into which setter method, which value should pass. But when it comes to constructor argument, we are not saying the constructor argument name here. We are not giving any argument name. So we are not saying I have a constructor argument field name. Into that field name, you need to pass this. We are not using any such a reference here. Okay. So when I have constructor arguments, I just need to simply follow the order of my constructor argument, and I need to perform dependency injection here. So let's say here my class is having field name, and let's take one more property, private int field price. Okay, so field price. So I have one more property, dependency injection, and I want to do this through constructor. Let's print this price also, field price. Okay, so now here first argument is petrol I am passing, and the next argument should be the price value. This price value I should pass. So whatever order I have here, right? First one is string, next one is integer. In whatever order you have, in the same order you need to pass values here. In the same order you need to pass values here, right? Otherwise, if you change the order, it will say the constructor with the given fields is not found by Ioc container. So you should follow order while doing dependency injection through constructor arguments, because it will not allow us to put any property name here. Property name in the sense the field name which you have dependency. So here field name and field price as dependencies. You cannot, or you cannot able to put that names here, so that you must need to ensure the order while doing dependency injection through constructor. So here also, right, instead of using property tag, use constructor argument, and as this is secondary type, you need to use reference and you can pass that value. Same way here, the dependency is engine, so the engine class reference you should pass. So that's all. So the same dependency injection now we are performing with constructors. See, comfortably it is executing. So car methods called, engine methods called, and fuel class methods also called. Whichever dependencies we have, those methods are calling by your classes, and the dependency injection we had performed using constructors. So this is how you need to use constructor dependency injection. Okay. Now we discussed yesterday, right? We can perform this dependency injection. We can perform this dependency injection using setter method and constructors. But when you have the dependencies of secondary types, particularly into your MVC classes, when you have secondary type dependencies, particularly into your MVC classes, you need to follow interface and implementation model to inject them. Interface implementation model you need to follow to inject them. Let me give an example. Okay, this is very important. Okay, so as IOC I said, right, IOC is lightweight
Sir, is there
and
any
loosely
specific
coupled.
scenario that when to go for setter-based dependency injection and when to go for constructor-based dependency injection, sir?
Yeah. So when all dependencies are mandatory, right? As we see in the before example, calling setters is not mandatory, but calling constructors are mandatory. Even you call your dependency methods or not in your application, but without passing this constructor arguments, right? I'm not going to call my method, just comment it, okay? And try to instantiate your classes. Just try to create objects for your classes. See,
It's not
objects even
happening.
not created. You are seeing bean creation exceptions. Okay.
Okay.
So it is saying no matching method or no matching constructor found. So it is
Okay.
unable to instantiate your classes as your classes are having dependencies. That too, those dependencies are mandatory while creation of your POSO itself. So you compulsory need to do constructor argument dependency injection. When you say when your classes are having mandatory dependencies, compulsory dependencies, you can put constructor dependency injection style instead of setter dependency injection style. Okay. So, and in constructors, right, it is mandatory to follow order also. You should follow order, and it is compulsory should put constructor arguments here. If it have two arguments, you should pass two arguments. If it have three arguments, you compulsory should pass three arguments. But in case of setter method, it won't force us to pass values. Okay. So when you want to ensure that your class dependencies need to be injected compulsory, then you can inject that values through constructor.
Constructor.
Or if you are implementing a design pattern, or if you are implementing something, a factory or something, right? So as a technical person or as an architect, you implemented some framework or you implemented some design pattern, and in that design pattern class you have some dependency. That dependency is compulsory whoever is going to use your class. So while they are configuring your class here, if you want to make sure that your class instantiation should be happen through constructor only, I mean after passing all the dependencies only, you put your class dependencies through constructor, so that whoever is going to use your class, right, they won't miss dependencies. If they miss, even your container is not going to start your application. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
In real scenario, right, we are not or nowhere going to use constructors or setters as when we go through annotations. Okay. Everything will be do automatically, auto wearing concept we have. Okay, as we are here, yeah. So yeah, this is what, right, for constructors, when it is mandatory to make whoever is going to inject, right? So if you want to restrict them or if you want to make sure them they need to inject all the dependencies, go with constructor dependency injection. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
sir.
So yesterday we discussed that IOC container is lightweight and it will make your application classes loosely coupled. So why lightweight we understand, because it doesn't require not required any special server support, so that whatever memory you have in your server side, that memory will be occupied with your application only, not with other third-party applications or servers. So your application will become little lightweight on servers and loosely coupled. So loosely coupled is possible through dependency injection. Still, here you need to follow some kind of designing principle. Dependency injection loosely coupled is possible with interface dependency injection only. You need to use interface dependency injection only. If you follow this interface dependency injection, then only your application will become loosely coupled. We will see what is interface dependency injection. Okay, in Java, in general, in Java, we know, right, what is interface. Interface will have abstract methods. Okay, interface will have generally abstract methods. I have a service class here. I have a service class here, user service or product service. I have one product service interface. I have one product service interface, and I have methods here, public void add product, update product, and delete product. Consider you need to implement product service. My product service is having these many methods: add product, update product, and delete product. So instead, before going to implementing your class, right, you know how many methods you need and how to implement these methods also. But before jumping into directly a class, first just spend some time and put your methods into interface. Okay, put your methods into interface first and then start the implementation. So if you follow this, right, first try to create an interface which with all methods you required. Okay, so first create interface, then start implementing your interface. Then start implementing your interface. So implement class, then class product service IMPL implements from product service. Okay, so first create an interface, then implement it. So we know, right? So when we do implementation, you compulsory need to override all the methods from the interface and you should provide the implementation. So without interface also, you may come directly here and you can implement your methods by mentioning your method name and the business logic here, whatever you need. But before doing that, please create an interface. If you can create an interface implementation model, you are going to achieve a great feature. So if you can follow this pattern, so try to create interfaces first with signature, with method signatures, whatever you want, and then provide the implementation. Okay, now what is the advantage if I go with this? By using Spring, right, you have great advantage with this. So here I have some business logic. Consider I have business logic for add product and for update product, okay, and for delete product. Okay, so while adding product or while updating product or deleting product, something I hard coded here, or consider some logic I have here. Okay, so this logic is having something adding GST 18% I'm adding on this product, and while updating also GST 18% I'm adding here. Okay, just inside my logic I have some logic. Inside my logic I have some GST logic here for doing GST calculation. Somehow I hard coded it, that logic I have here. Or I may calling some third-party services to understand what is the GST I should perform. Okay. Now I have a controller class. This is my service, and from user interface I'm getting a request to add a product. Someone adding a product from interface. So from here UI they are calling it, and the request will come to my controller. Once they submit it, it will come to my controller, and my controller class need to call this add product method. I have dependency here. Whenever user try to call from the UI, right, add method or update product or delete product, my request will come to my controller. Controller should able to call these methods. So from here, I need to make call to these methods. So whenever any class is having the dependency of other class methods, what we need to do, we need to perform dependency injection. So we know how to do that by configuring product service IMPL, by configuring product service IMPL and IMPL reference here, either using setter method or by constructor, we can inject this. And further here, whatever methods you have, right, controller methods, from there you can call the dependency methods, implement dot add product, something. So I'm calling my method from here. So similar way, all the methods, update and delete methods, I'm calling from product controller. And here my dependency is product service implementation dependency. So this is direct dependency of this product service implementation. Okay. So now this is how my application implemented, and this is running fine in your application server. It is running it and everybody using it to add product or delete product. They are comfortably using your application. Now government changed GST from 18% to 28%. So government changed the GST calculation from 18% to 28%, and there are some other calculations, VAT, something they added. All that operations I need to change. All that operations I need to change here in my existing class. If I disturb my existing class, right, or if I am going to add additional methods, or if I am going to disturb my existing class, or if I want to add new class in place of this, okay, whenever I got a change. So instead of editing a existing class here, right, if you edit, what will happen if you delete or if you add new class? Let's say in future if you want to pass new class with new features, so complete all together new infrastructure support you got to your application. Let's say this class calculations like 18% to 28% you need to change, and as well as some VAT also you need to add. VAT 5% you need to add. These calculations you need to do, as well as it is connecting with some GOUT interfaces, or GOUT services to get the latest GST information. So these GOUT services, let's say GOUT services changed, government changed their services or website links also. So now my class is not going to work. This class is not going to work. I need to change completely the GOUT services, whichever they change, the GOUT services dependencies I have, and the calculations also I need to change. So my class is not going to useful. So I need to remove this class. I need to remove this class, and altogether I need to implement a new class with all new services and with all new calculations. Brand new I want to implement. So whenever you want to directly remove this class, first application will not allow you, or else whenever you remove this, right, you will get many errors in other dependency classes. So you will get many errors in controller class, as your controller class is having product service implementation directly dependency here. So instead of this, right, so in the same implementation itself, instead of you inject whatever dependencies you have, as we are following interface implementation model, right, here create product service dependency with IMPL is a reference. Just create product service dependency. It's an interface reference. It's a interface. So create any interface reference here, and you can inject implementation objects. So from application side, your code is not going to change. From application side, whatever implementation you have, you can inject this implementation here. Okay, can we do that in Java? Is it possible? Can we put interface reference equal to new implementation object? It is possible, right? So as it is possible in Java, as this is possible, you can put child class objects into parent class references. It can be parent abstract class, or it can be a parent interface also. You can do this in Java. Java will allow you to put interface reference equal to implementation object. So as this is allowed, use this feature here. So in your dependency classes, create interface references first and inject your implementation object. Whenever you want to discontinue existing implementation, right, you happily remove this class, delete your product implementation class. It is not at all going to impact on your controller. So whatever test cases you implemented for your controller, those test cases also not going to impact it. It will not impact any other layer when you discontinue with this class. Okay, government changed their services and government changed their calculations. what you can do, you can provide new implementation. Altogether, brand new implementation you can do. You can provide new implementation here again by implementing from the same interface. Class product new implementation implements from your product service. Now do all brand new operations here. Whatever you want to perform, public void, add product, update product. You need to implement all the methods. As you have all the methods dependent, compulsory you need to implement as you are implementing interface. Add all your new calculations here. So the 28% GST calculations and 5% VAT calculations. Whatever you have, that all operations you can perform, the new operations. And you can have the new services dependencies here. Comfortably, you can change all your dependencies, and comfortably you can change your business logic also here, but the signature of your method should be same, which is there in the interface. Now, once after discontinuing with this, in my XML file, if I configure my product new implementation class, and if I try to inject that new implementation class into my controller, your controller will accept it. Your controller will accept it. Okay. So if I follow this interface dependency injection means configuring interface reference in your parent, dependency class, and do the dependency injection of implementation object. Okay. Directly we can't inject interfaces. Okay. But into interfaces you can inject implementation object. Whenever you discontinue with this class, just remove this class and add new class, and this new class methods now onwards it will call from here. Your controller class is going to call new class methods. This is how this controller layer and this business layer, we can make the two layers loosely coupled. Okay. Now this controller layer and business layer are not tightly coupled. Here my business classes I have. These business classes are not directly, or your controller class is not directly depending on business implementation. Instead of, we are depending on interface. So for this interface, we can have any number of implementations going featured. So your controller is not going to disturb, even if provide new implementation also comfortably, it will accept it, as because you are following interface implementation model. Okay. So this is the recommended model if you want to achieve loosely coupled application. Okay. If you want to achieve loosely coupled application, your layers, if you want to make loosely coupled by using dependency injection, if you want to do that, use interface dependency injection instead of direct class dependency injection. Got it right? Any doubts? Yeah. If not, let me show you a simple example. You can do dependency injection either through setter or constructor. Okay. The fifth example, dependency injection. Okay. Interface dependency injection to make application loosely coupled. Or get the same, this car engine example. So from this example, right, here directly our classes are depending on direct implementations. Car is having direct engine class dependency. Engine is a class. So direct dependency we configure here. So if you make like this, this car is tightly coupled with this engine. In future, the car engine, if you want to change, you can't change it directly. Okay. it is like a tightly coupled dependency. Similar way, the engine class is having fuel class dependency. In feature, if you want to change the fuel type, you cannot change it as directly it is having fuel dependency. Now let's do interface implementation model. As I have here print fuel method, right? Print fuel is my required method. So first to create interface, fuel interface first before implementation, right? Fuel interface. So my required method is print fuel. So this is my interface and I need to implement this interface. Here consider you had not implemented this. Okay, implement fuel interface. So here it will ask us to implement it. You need to compulsory override the interface method print fuel. Okay, just implement it. Print fuel implemented. Okay, so now this fuel class dependency I have in engine, right? Into engine, don't do direct fuel dependency. Instead of direct implementation class dependency, now I will use the interface dependency. I'll put interface as a dependency here. Inject now using interface. So nowhere I am using my class name here. You see, nowhere we are using our class name here. Just injecting fuel by using interface. So we are not seeing anywhere the fuel class. So that in future, if you are going to change this fuel implementation also, no worries to this engine class, as this is not directly having your implementation as dependency. Similar way, engine class also, right? I have a start engine dependency. So let's say this implementation you don't have here at implement a create interface first. So this is my method signature. Now go to engine class and implement your engine from engine interface. Now it will ask you to implement engine method. So I implemented it. Okay. So my engine class is not having any fuel class dependency directly here. Similar way, go to car class. Okay. So here I have direct engine dependency, right? So as I have engine interface, instead of engine dependency, use spelling mistake, right? Be patient. G is not working in keyboard. Okay. Consider this is like engine. Okay. So go to car class. Instead of engine direct class dependency, put your engine interface reference. Keep the same thing here. Engine interface reference. Okay. So now car class is not having direct engine class object dependency. Instead, I have engine interface dependency. Now what I need to do into car class, I need to do interface dependency injection. Into engine class also, I need to do this interface dependency injection. Okay. So go to XML file. So here we have fuel class. Fuel class is having dependency of just fuel name. Okay, fine. Fuel name I'm passing here, and engine class object I'm creating, and this engine class is having dependency of fuel interface, and the setter method name is set fuel only. Here the dependency is interface. So into that interface, what I need to pass any implementation object. So here this F I am passing. This is fuel class reference, and this fuel class is the fuel interface implementation only. So as this is fuel interface implementation, we can comfortably inject it. It will accept. Similar way, car class is having engine interface reference. Into that engine interface reference, any implementation you can inject. So your engine class implemented from this interface, here you are injecting it. Now you can able to call your methods, your dependency methods. Though you injected into interface also, it will provide implementation at runtime into that interface references. So you could able to call those classes. See, fuel, engine, car objects created, and those methods also calling start car, start engines, and the fuel from petrol also. But directly nowhere I created the implementation dependencies. I created interface dependencies. So if you follow this pattern, what will happen? So in future, if you want to decouple something, or if you want to discontinue some layer, let's say here I have implementation, engine implementation, or I have fuel implementation, something if you want to discontinue, easily you can remove that class. That is not going to directly impact on your test cases or on your classes. Okay, just let me, okay, take out this class. I'll remove this engine class from here and I'll copy here. Just I'm removing it. Okay, see, I deleted it. Okay, I mean I moved it somewhere, or else let's delete it. Copy the code and delete it. So I want to change the car engine. I want to upgrade my car engine. I want to discontinue with existing one. Just remove it. It is not going to impact on your test cases. First thing. Okay. And it is not going to disturb any your existing classes. See, why still car class is not popping up any errors, and why your other class is also not showing any errors? It's a important service layer which is between controller and DAO layer. Still I removed it, the complete implementation. So it is not impacted on any of my classes because all my classes are loosely coupled classes. That's the reason. Otherwise, if you go into the previous example here, right, delete this engine and so immediately errors popped up. We don't know how many or in how many places that class dependency we have. All that other places you will see errors, and you will see many errors through the test classes also. Okay, so but here I removed it. Still I don't have any error. Okay, so the beauty is I am using interface dependency injection instead of implementation direct dependency. Okay, so let's put your again engine implementation here. Now I want to discontinue with this. I want to discontinue this. Okay, whatever it is I am injecting here, right? So this engine is considered, this engine implementation is for my car. Okay, I have Pelino, so I have 1250cc engine I have. So I want to upgrade my engine. I want to upgrade it to 1500cc engine. So I don't want this engine. Uh, I just want to discontinue my engine. I want to provide new engine to my car class. So what you can do, provide a new implementation, new engine. Okay, yeah, new engine, and you need to implement this new engine from again engine interface. So here you need to override start engine and all the dependencies, whatever dependencies you have earlier, keep the same fashion. So my new engine class is having fuel dependency, same dependencies, and here it will execute with new engine, start engine 1500cc. So before it is considered 1250cc I have. So now I upgraded this 1250cc to 1500cc, and you just simply remove your existing class, delete it as I have new implementation. Go to your configuration file and configure your new engine class here. That's it. Try to perform execution. So it is calling 1500cc engine. But whatever dependency car class I have, right? I didn't touch any even single line code here. So not only this class, your application might have your class dependency might have in many places, right? One class methods may using in many places. Let's say you have 50 classes or 100 classes are having dependency of this start engine method. Okay, consider if that is the scenario, all that 50 classes are not going to disturb. They will stay same, and only you changed the implementation. So since you changed the implementation, you are going to configure your new implementation here. You are going to configure your new implementation here. That's all. From now onwards, this new implementation object only will be injected into all your 50 dependency classes. So those dependency classes are not going to directly impact whenever you do a change. Okay, so that's the beauty of dependency injection through interfaces. Okay, you can say by using Spring IOC, you can make application loosely coupled by using interface dependency injection. Clear, guys?
Yes.
Yeah, fine. So yeah, this is what I thought to convey for today. Okay, so tomorrow we will see all the collections dependencies injection, and the secondaries we understand and the primitives we understand, right? There are many other ways to do inject collections and to call setters and constructors. There are different approaches Spring given. We will see all that approaches, and I'll start annotation approaches. So lot of things or lot of configurations we are writing right here. So all these configurations burden we are going to reduce while going through annotations. Okay, so we will see auto wiring concept. We will see all the stereotypes and auto wires. There are many other concepts that we will discuss tomorrow. Okay, so yeah, that's all for today. So yesterday also I didn't send any examples to you. Today I'll send it. Okay, for everyone whoever given email IDs, right? I'll send these 5 examples, and I'll send the jar files also. Okay, if you want to do any kind of homework, instead of using this car fuel engine kind of concept, right? Try something like real use case kind of thing. Okay, product controller, product service, product to DAO. Do such implementation and practice it. Okay, and follow interface implementation models. And if you have any doubts, you can ask me in tomorrow's session. Okay, once after this session, I'll send this examples. Okay, any doubts? Are we good?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you didn't share your email ID yet, please share me in the chat, or else I have other email IDs. Others I have, right? So anyone new today, please give or share your email ID here. Okay. So I informed the team to start meeting early by 7 o'clock only. Okay, they didn't aware of it. I thought the meeting automatically will start when we logged in, but not happened that. So from tomorrow by sharp 7, they'll start the meeting. Okay. And who can stay up to 9?
Yes, sir.
Better if it is by 8:45.
8:45, right? Yeah.
Yes.
We'll stay up to 8:45, or else up to 8:30 we'll do the discussions, and last 15 minutes we will have some, Q&A session or anything we will discuss. Okay. We will use that 15 minutes for our discussions. We can share our, thoughts. Yeah. So that's all for today then. Okay. I'll end the session. Okay. Good day for you guys. Bye.
Thank you. Good day.